I just did. All right. We're up. Up and ready to go. This is going to be an open-ended question and answer period. So whatever people want to talk about or whatever I feel I want to talk about, I guess, is on the table. So let's see who shows up and what kind of questions they might have. It says we got some viewers. Hey guys. We had fun getting into our temple today. We were locked out. Ian had to take apart a door in order to get us in here. Hi, Tia. That was kind of fun, but we made it, and we're here. Yay, us. Happy Sunday, yes. The joys of missing keys. So, what do you want to talk about, Tia? Got any questions for me? Or any stories you want to share? I know they have limited characters. Jalessa says, hi, Siofra, hope you're doing well. Yes, I am much better. I think I'm pretty much 100% back to normal. Starting to feel more inspired and energetic, which is good. I like that. Feeling kind of bleh is not any fun at all. So hope everybody else is doing well. MC says, hello, Siofra, you're looking well. What can you share about lucid dreaming and how to have them more often? I appreciate you. Okay, thank you very much. It's always good to be appreciated. Lucid dreaming is a practice that for some people it's simple and for other people it can take a lot of time. The definition of a lucid dream is becoming conscious of the fact that you're dreaming while you're in the dream and having the dream. Some of the tricks that people have used to know that they're dreaming are like programming yourself throughout the day, finding something simple like going through a doorway, opening up a door, looking at a clock, something that's a typical activity that you have in real life. And when you're doing that activity, whatever you pick, as you do it, you stop for a second and you say, am I dreaming? And you keep doing this every day. And at some point, you'll have that same situation crop up in a dream. And when you're in the dream and you're doing the activity, you'll say, am I dreaming? And that will trigger you to know that you are actually having a lucid dream. Maintaining it is a completely different process. But in the beginning, knowing that you're dreaming is rather an important step. So trying to maintain being in the dream and not losing it can take some practice. And if you see anything really strange, some people realize they're dreaming because something happens that can't possibly have any real life connection, like seeing a pig fly. My partner David had that happen to him when he lucid dreamed. There was a pig flying and he thought, wait a minute, pigs can't fly, and poof, he knew he was dreaming. So if you really want to do the lucid dreaming regularly, then keeping a dream journal is important. Your subconscious will respond to your attention to it. And so by keeping a dream journal and a short like daily diary with the journal and identifying what your specific dream images mean, what your dream symbols are, will also help you get the most out of a lucid dream as well. So trying to think if there's anything else I can say on lucid dreaming. They're certainly fun to have. I've had my share. I don't do much of that right now. Although the last couple of nights I've been having dreams about being in other countries. I dreamt I was in Ireland one night for most of the night. And I think the next night I was in New York City, which is weird because I don't go to New York City. So that was sort of interesting. So Jalisa asks, or Jalisa, what do you think about recurring dreams and nightmares? Okay, so a recurring dream or a nightmare is something your subconscious really wants you to pay attention to. And generally speaking, things become nightmares because you're not paying attention to your regular dreams. Dreams aren't after trying to scare you. That's not their point or their purpose. and when it comes down to it, they're there to communicate something that you're feeling, something that you have noticed, something that's important to your heart, that you're not paying attention to. And so if you're having a recurring dream, unless it's a prophetic dream, which is slightly different, then you want to work with that dream and try and figure out what it's talking about. And some of the ways you can work with dreams would be you can get with either a group of people or do it on your own and say the dream out loud, but in not the third person. Say it as if it's happening in the current moment, and do it first from the main character, which is usually you in the dream, but then retell the dream from the point of view of other things that are in the dream. And they can be inanimate objects because they can have just as much of a powerful message as some speaking part might have. I did a dream workshop once where a woman had a dream that was very involved with this stove and a pot on the stove, and when she used that technique and became the pot and described the dream from that perspective, suddenly something clicked in her brain and she understood what the dream was saying to her. So everything in a dream is symbolic, even things that you might not think about. So that's definitely one of the ways. And having the little sort of daily diary notes along with your dreams, generally speaking, it takes a couple of days after you experience something before it shows up in your dream world. And so when that happens, you can go back a couple of days and you can look at it and see, what was I doing, what was happening, what was going on, kind of thing, and does this relate to that? And when you're trying to figure out how to interpret your dream, look at the different levels of the dream as well. So look at it as literal, if there's a literal component to the dream, like you fell off a roof or down a flight of stairs, or a tree fell on your house, or your dog escaped and, got lost, or, something of that nature. Then look at the literal component first and see if there's a warning there, like the leash is about to break, or there's a railing that is loose and someone could hurt themselves, something that you may have unconsciously noticed throughout the day. And your dream self is going, hey, alert. And then look at all of if there are people in the dream, look at those people playing themselves and being themselves first. Like, is your dream telling you something about the essential character, what you feel about someone? Someone suddenly shows up in a Nazi uniform and starts ordering you around, or is a prison guard of some kind, or something like that. That's probably a warning from your unconscious that person is a control freak and wants to be in charge of everything. And you can look at real life and see if that is true or if it's just a fear that you have. And then you look at the dream from the point of view of everything in the dream is an aspect of you. So the other people are different parts of your personality, and they're playing their roles out amongst each other. And even sometimes objects are a part of you. And so, it's a very involved but personal journey that people make. And no one can do that except for you. Okay? I think I covered all of that. All right. So, what's your opinion on in fifth dimension consciousness, the great conjunction, and making this shift? Well, I think the idea of a consciousness shift across the planet is an idealistic view of evolution and how it does and doesn't work. I think it's a nice notion, and it would be great if it actually happened. There's no reason why it can't happen for certain individuals, but I don't think it's going to be everybody who's here, because we're in too many different places, spiritually and evolutionarily, as far as what we're here to do and what we're here to accomplish. So I sort of don't worry about it too much and just work on myself. I guess that would be my opinion. Any favorite herbs to assist lucid dreaming? Okay, so mugwort is one of the dream herbs that people talk about a lot. Some people smoke it. I don't think smoking things is good for your lungs in particular. So you can either drink it as a tea, you can put it in a dream pillow, put it underneath your pillow. You can also, with your dream journal, write in your dream journal, I'm going to remember my dreams and all this other stuff when I go to sleep tonight, and I will listen to my dreams and what they want to tell me and that kind of thing. So that would be a thing. Let's see. Tia says, I created my first altar. Do you have any tips or stories about your altars? Well, I've had a lot of altars over the years. As you know, in our temple here, we've got 5 altars. A 6th one, if we count Ian's portable altar that he has had for many, many years. And then sometimes we have other things that we use for altars for temporary stuff. Altar is like your personal representation of your path, where you're at, what things are important to you. So really, an altar doesn't have to have certain prescribed things on it. Most people, when they have an altar, like to have representations of the elements and a representation of the god and the goddess, or the male and the female. It's not necessary, and you can have it without it. And you don't have to go out, spend a lot of money and buy a bunch of stuff in order to create an altar. You have your favorite crystals or stones, things you've picked up at the beach, a shell, that can represent the water. You can have a container of salt for the earth, a candle for fire. You can keep it fairly simple, but it's for you. It's sort of your personal space exteriorized onto a spot for you to interact with. And how you treat your altar and how you think about your altar determines how sacred those objects become for you. And we did a whole video on what a sacred object is and how it becomes sacred, and that's part of that. That's like how you treat it, how you think about it, how you interact with it makes it special, and that makes it sacred. And it can change. It doesn't have to stay the same. We ended up with all these altars because we've been at it for so long, and we wanted to have a working temple. And so instead of trying to get all the elements on one, I decided we would have one altar for each of the elements. And even at that, we had to get bigger tables over the years because we just acquired more stuff, or people gave us things. And I find a lot of stuff at Goodwill. Except in the middle of the pandemic. I haven't been to Goodwill in a long time, but I'm one of those people that go there and find all sorts of things. A lot of my candle holders have come from Goodwill, and some statues. I found any number of god and goddess statues over the years in secondhand stores and at Goodwill. So it's that personal interaction representation for you that makes it an altar. You can dedicate an altar, with a small ritual and say that, this is my sacred space. You probably don't want to have other people playing with your stuff on your altar. That's sort of like playing with your body without your permission from an energetic point of view. So, yeah. And of course, incense for air or bells and all that kind of stuff. Your candle is not lit. I know. I did not light my candle. You are correct. And I had it lit in my last video. It's my peace candle. This is a peace candle we made last year, I think. On Maybon, when we do our peace candles. Okay, so now my candle is lit. April Ethereal says, Hi Siofra, do you have any advice for rituals that can help you let go of negative attachments in behavior? I've researched this, but I am curious about your personal experience with this. Okay, so the video that I put up called the Cup Transformation Ritual is one of the ones that I used to help with that. That's one method of helping to transform your subconscious. And in that ritual, you take charge up a cup of salt and water and name something that you're trying to change or transform. And visualize that leaving you and going into the cup. And then after you get it out of yourself, then you transform the energy into, a light, force energy kind of thing, and then rename it what you want it to get back. So like fear can turn into courage, anxiety can turn into peaceful calmness, or there's no this is it to turn into that. It's whatever it is that you need. And doing that on a regular basis sort of is a way of talking directly to your subconscious. And then there's other things, like one of the anger things I did a lot of in the beginning was from Starhawk's book as well. And that was putting a black rock on your forehead and then you screaming, putting all your rage and anger into the stone. And when you finally feel exhausted from trying to get rid of as much of it as you can at a time, throw it in. For me, I threw it into the river by the house where I lived. That she doesn't recommend burying near plants because that energy is concentrated enough that it could potentially harm a plant, she says, Starhawk says. And so I always put it in running water. If you don't have a stream or an ocean to put it in, you can put the stone underneath a sink, faucet, and let it take the water, take that out, and take it down into the sewer system. Sneezing, huh? Okay. We're having allergy attacks the last couple of days. We're not sure what's going on. I think one of our neighbors has been burning something not good for the air. So that's what you want. You want to think of what it is that you're trying to transform, and there's a lot of different rituals. Attachments, candle rituals work pretty well for that, or cord cutting rituals, where you can visualize the connection between you and a person, if it's a person you're attached to, or an item, or like a substance, and visualize the cord coming from you to whatever it is you're trying to release and let go of. And then if you have an athame, you can use an athame, or not, you can use a ritual pair of scissors or something, but consciously cutting that connection between you and the thing you're trying to release, and let that go. And with a candle, black candles are usually the best for binding, unbinding kinds of things. And you can write what the person's name, if it's a person you're trying to distance yourself from, or the substance, or the problem, or the issue, whatever it is, on the candle. And on the other, and then you can write, banish and then say something simple when you light the candle, like, as this candle burns, my connection to this blankety blank dissipates as the candle releases my desire, my need, my connection. You have to figure out what are the right words for that kind of thing. And there's rituals can be catered to all kinds of things. On Yule, we did one to help a friend of mine after she was divorced, and she wanted to do a descent into the underworld and sort of let go of all of that stuff, and then to reclaim her power as she came back up, being on her own now. So, because she's no longer a couple. And it was a very powerful ritual. So, your imagination is about the only thing that can limit you when it comes to that. So, think it through, or have more specific questions, and write me an email and I'll see what I can do. So Jaleesa says, I constantly have dreams about being chased on a cruise ship. I usually don't dream in places I know, and most of them are about running away or being pursued. Kim says, hi everyone. Hi Siofra. Hi, Kim. So being chased, trying to escape, running from something trying to catch you. Undoubtedly, that's something in your life or in your past that's trying to make itself known, and something you might be trying to avoid. So you might want to look at that. Like if you have a history of abuse in your family, or in a relationship, or it even could be a fear of your spiritual path and transforming yourself because it's into the unknown. Certainly the ocean is the great unknown. There's like all kinds of things out there we still don't even know exist. And so being on a cruise ship as you're cruising along in your life, and all of a sudden some great unknown comes up and says, hey, I don't know, it's your dream. You'll have to figure it out. But try some of those techniques with describing the dream in real time the next time you have one, writing it down for sure. And sometimes when you write your dreams down, you'll actually remember details that you didn't realize weren't there, because the cells that your brain uses for dreaming is sort of like a self-erasing grouping of cells. And the only way to get them into long-term memory is for them to either be incredibly traumatic, like with a vivid nightmare that, freaks you out, or for you to recount the dream. And I've had some dreams where I wake up inside of another dream, and then wake up inside of another dream, and then wake up inside of another dream. And I remember the dream that was way down at the bottom, because every time I wake up into the next dream, I'm telling everybody in that dream what I just dreamt. It's like I keep on doing that until I finally actually wake up in my body and in this reality. So it's sort of entertaining and weird when that happens. I don't get that very often anymore, but I used to get that a lot more. I had to bring some message back to myself from way down in the bottom of my subconscious someplace, I'm assuming. So, Canary says, any self-healing tips, particularly the sacral chakra? Well, doing grounding exercises is going to help. As far as the chakras are concerned. And the sacral chakra is about survival and life force. So doing things that increase your energy would be good for the Actually, that's the root chakra. The sacral chakra is the sex chakra. Okay, got my chakras mixed up here. That's about sexuality, and there can certainly be a lot of damage associated with that, especially if you've had an experience of trauma associated with sexuality. So besides therapy and helping with that, I'm thinking, well, the tree exercise with the healing chant in it can help just all of the chakras in general. Okay, let's say you know a little bit about my history and the abuse that I suffered. One of the things that I did to help me heal from that, and didn't realize I was doing it until later, that's what it was for, was I became a life art model. And it gave me an opportunity to be in a situation where I was naked and it was not a sexual situation. So it helped me to distinguish between the two things, that they didn't have to be exactly the same. So that is what I ended up doing. So finding ways to be able to set your boundaries, that would be a boundary setting thing that I did, as well as being vulnerable. I was vulnerable but not vulnerable. It's sort of hard to explain. Massage is a good approach for that particular chakra, because again, there's a clear boundary. There should be a clear boundary between the therapist and the patient or client, and it's an opportunity to experience physical enjoyment without it having to be sexually charged. And so again, it helps to separate those things out so that they cannot necessarily be the same thing. That's the only thing that's coming to mind with my brain at the moment. Okay, so Lisa says thank you. Okay, good. I'm glad the dream thing helped. Sarah says, hi Siofra, do you have an interest in numerology and astrology? I have not gotten much into numerology. I read Paul Foster Case's book on gematria, and it drove me insane. I don't like math. And astrology, I have more of an interest in because I work with planetary forces. So I work with, the energies of the different planets. And so I'm much more aware of their influences as far as it goes. But when it comes to like getting a chart done and someone telling me what my life is going to be like, I'm not particularly into that because I know from my past lives and experiences and so forth that it's sort of a generalized influence that's out there that affects things, but you still have your own personal choices to make and decide what is going to influence you or not. And it's been interesting. The first time I had my chart done as a Capricorn, I was just a nasty woman according to the chart. It was like, my. I didn't like people. I was just all about keeping everything for myself and was just, incredibly selfish and power hungry and all this other stuff, which I'm not and never have been. So that sort of put me off the whole notion. I think that a lot of the signs have been misunderstood, and it depends upon the person who's doing the astrology chart too, and their understanding and comprehension of it. The boilerplate kind of stuff that you get from a program isn't going to have the nuanced interpretation that someone who actually knows what they're doing will have as far as seeing how these forces interact with one another in your particular chart, because everyone is different. So I guess that would be the answer to that question. All right. Tia says, I do like your sacred tree meditation. I've started doing it pretty regularly. Awesome. That was one of my favorite things that we developed as a group. And if you do it with a group of people, you'll find that there's a different part to it that isn't in the video. It sort of transforms itself when you do it with a group of people. But it works really well by, alone. So, let's see. Hi, Siofra and Ian. Nisha says, hi, and Happy New Year to you both. Well, soon. We only have, a few days left, I hope. Canary says, if you curse someone, does it always have negative backlash? Not planning to curse anyone, just curious. Okay, so cursing is a whole subject in and of itself. And that's a video I want to do a whole video on about the idea that all magic has a price, which would be where that basis comes from. The theory is that any magic you do, you're doing it not just to the person you're doing it on, but also to yourself. Whether that's true or not is a whole different issue. But that is what a lot of people believe. And when it comes down to it, what you believe about it is going to be more important than what anyone else thinks about it. If you curse someone, then you're going to get a backlash, then that becomes your reality because that's what you think is going to happen, and it's an energetic process. And so, bracelet fell off. And so you're going to have a reaction to that. So it's some people are into cursing because they think there are some people who deserve to be cursed because they're bad people. I've dealt with a few people that I thought were dangerous and needed to be taken care of. And what I've done instead of doing a curse is cast a spell to make the truth come out so that the authorities would see what was happening and the person's bad actions would come out, and then they would have to sort of face the consequences of what they had done. But everyone's going to have a different view on that, and that's mine. All right, so let's see. Devil Blue says, hello, Siofra. All of your jewelry is so pretty. Did you get to see the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction? Did you have any carolers in the neighborhood? No one was out for Christmas and no carolers. Everything was very quiet here. Everybody was indoors and staying away from others. At least I was. I could feel the conjunction, but we had clouds, so we really haven't seen it. And I've seen some of the pictures from the telescopes and stuff like that around the world where they've shown them to them. Like, rescue my bracelet down here before I forget. This is my Iolite bracelet. Apparently the latch just sort of came open. Um, Kim says, in astrology, how does someone being considered a cusp baby? Is it 3 days before and 3 days after the 21st, or question mark? Well, the closer you are to the actual shift, the more of a cusp you're on. I'm on a cusp between Capricorn and Aquarius because I was born on the 17th. And the 20th, I think, is the usual time that Capricorn turns into Aquarius, or they consider that I'm on a cusp. My daughter is on the almost exact moment of the cusp between Leo and Virgo. She was born 8 minutes before it shifted. So I think the closer you are to that shift, the more the next sign has influence on you, according to astrology. So Jaleesa says, do you have any experience with Ouija boards, spirit boards, and have you ever used them to communicate with other entities like the Fae? I haven't used them to communicate with the Fae. I have used them to communicate with my own higher spirit, the one that the video was about yesterday, with Moida. And I really haven't used it much. I used it when I was younger, but in recent times, the communication I get is more direct anyway, and it just seems like I'm putting a layer between me and what I'm getting. And so it doesn't make sense for me to do that. That doesn't mean other people can't get good information from it. And I think that, again, that's another one of those charged subjects. People are very either for or against the idea of using a Ouija board. It's a game board that somebody created. It's not packed with spirits when you get it. It would be pretty funny if the entire factory was chanting as the boards came out of the line and placing individual spirits in the boards, but then they would probably cost a lot more money. So again, it's going to be your particular way of using it, your beliefs in it, the idea of opening up a portal. It's always a good idea if you're trying to communicate with any kind of spirit being, that you have your own protections up. I think if kids are doing it, there's less potential for harm because they don't know what they're doing, and somehow the universe seems to try and protect people who are innocent and stupid at the same time. Or ill-advised. I don't know, not stupid, not the right word. Violet says hello. Hi, Violet. Sarah says thanks. I'm drawn to most to astrology. I am a Gemini, Sun, Aquarius, Moon, and Capricorn rising. Okay, so your rising sign is usually your outward personality. I'm a Gemini rising and double Capricorn. Can you answer my question at Sarah Eubanks? Kim Medina. In astrology, how does... Oh, she wants Sarah to answer her question. Okay. I'll let you guys do that. Devil Blues, I also wanted to know about the cursing question. Thank you for answering. You're welcome. I mean, I think that in a crisis kind of situation, like a death curse, someone who curses someone who's murdering them on their deathbed, that's kind of like a whole different ballgame when it comes down to curses, but you never know. Any good weight loss spells? Nope. It's like everything else. Nothing is easy. Just have to exercise, and you might be able to do some rituals to help with cravings, like cord cutting kind of stuff, or banishing, like with the candle that we talked about earlier, possibly. So the Heart's Wisdom says, hi, Siofra. I wanted to say hello and thank you for the wisdom you are sharing with us. I find it very wonderful. I only discovered you recently, and I am somehow drawn to you. I am an empath medium. Well, hello, welcome, Heart's Wisdom. I can't talk. Heart's Wisdom, whatever your name is. Thank you for appreciating what we're doing here on the channel, and I'm glad that you found us. So Kim says, I feel the conjunction. I also feel the veil has thinned. Yeah, and I've been feeling that too. I mean, especially as the sun is going down, I start to feel it because the conjunction is over in the west. And I find that interesting because that's not something I'm always experiencing. Of course, when I was younger, I did a lot of flying around the solar system and taking rides on comets and things. So every so often I'm out there sort of looking around to see if there's anything I can ride. and have fun with. It's kind of my thing. So, yeah, it's been interesting. And it could be one of those things that only sensitives are going to experience. Um, we shall see what happens. Um, Kim says, I am July 19th, so I'm Cancer Leo. Now I know. Thank you. April Ethereal says, thanks for answering my question. I have issues with knowing what is important best for me, but being too out of focus with the earthly plane to implement my plans. It seems like spiritual stuff is natural for me, practice stuff simply isn't, so I'll need to put some work in and break some attachments. Yeah, and I was the same. I was born extremely open. I had people afraid of me when I was 4 years old because I would say stuff that they could not understand how I could know. And people are often afraid of what they can't pigeonhole. If it's outside of what they experience as normal, everyday reality, it freaks them out. And that always hurt my feelings because, I've never done any harm to anyone on purpose. And I couldn't understand, especially as a child, why people didn't like me and not just didn't like me, but were afraid of me. So learning how to ground and get more control over my abilities is helpful. It doesn't necessarily change that dynamic for a certain group of people. Like here in town, just before all the school shootings started, I got a warning from, I don't know what to call them. Dion Fortune says that they're the psychic police. There's like, it's hard to describe. I'd never had any contact with them before this one night, and all of a sudden, all of these bells I thought were real were just going off all over the place, and it woke me up out of a sound sleep, and and they gave me this warning, and I knew what the warning meant. And then I told people. I told people that I was concerned that something bad was being started, and that it was going to affect children in particular. That they were going to this particular group was going to be targeting the innocent and the younger children because they were unprepared and vulnerable, and that it was coming soon. And it was 2 weeks before the Dunsblain massacre happened in Scotland. And then, of course, we know how that continued on after that. And the women I talked to about that never spoke to me again. Yeah, that's the Cassandra issue. Cassandra syndrome. I have that a lot. So Jaleesa says, thoughts on tarot and oracle cards. Do you use them in your practice? Okay, I started off with the tarot, and I started off with the Rider-Waite deck, and that was let's see, I was in high school, so that would have been in 1964, I think. And at that time, they were the only tarot deck available. There were not all these other cards out there. And I'm sort of glad that that happened that way because without understanding exactly how it was happening, it made me acquainted with a lot of the esoteric symbols from the ceremonial magician's viewpoint and the astrological forces and all sorts of things like that. And I did readings for other people for a long time. I started having some issues with doing readings for other people. Actually, right in high school, I started having issues because I did a reading for a fellow student who was getting ready to join the service and go to Vietnam, and he wanted me to tell him what would happen, and the card layout ended with death. And I knew that it might not be literal death, but it was definitely going to be a significant change in him if he didn't die physically. And I told him what I saw and said I didn't think he should go. And of course, his girlfriend, who fancied herself a psychic, said that he was going to be just fine and there wasn't anything to worry about, so he signed up and went. I don't know what happened to him, but it sort of made me uneasy and made me feel kind of powerless. It's like, that's the whole Cassandra syndrome. Sometimes knowing something that's going to happen and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So if you're going to do readings for other people, that's one of the things you might have to deal with, The other thing is people don't necessarily want to know what the cards are saying, and if you're doing readings legitimately, then one of the commitments that you make, there's actually a god of the tarot, is to tell the truth and not to diminish what the cards are telling you, whether the person who's getting the reading likes it or not. And then the other issue is unduly influencing people to go in a certain direction. And, I started having issues with that in the Kispiaks, not just with readings, but just talking to people sometimes. Because I had a friend who was abused. She was being beaten severely by her husband, and she kept coming to me and asking me for help, and I did what I could and, tried to give her some good advice and stuff like that. And it suddenly dawned on me one day that if she followed my advice and things didn't go well and things went bad, then she wouldn't be responsible for what happened, but she would see that I was responsible for what happened. And one of the things about this path that I'm passionate about is taking personal responsibility for your own actions. And so I'm quite willing to share my perspective on things and my experiences and stuff like that, but I don't feel comfortable telling people what to do and telling them this is going to happen. And so I sort of stopped doing readings a number of years ago. Never did get into the oracle cards. I have a couple of decks of them that people have given me over the years, but yeah. I picked one up at Goodwill, I think, which was one of Doreen, the woman who became the Christian's deck, angel cards or something like that. And they're just all platitudes and cliches and things as far as I can tell, so they don't mean anything to me. They might mean something to someone else. And I think that's it. It's like with those kinds of things, it depends on where you're at and what you can get out of them. And certainly tarot cards have helped me when I was deciding whether I was going to leave my second husband or not. I actually did 2 tarot readings for myself, and doing them for myself is more likely anyway. One on if I was, upfront and with what I wanted and that I wanted to leave him, and one if I just let things play out. And they both had the same end as far as like us not being together. But in the first one, with me taking charge of it, then I was actually shaping my future. In the second one, it was forces beyond my control that I had no way of knowing what shape they would take that would do it. And that actually decided me to do it on my own. I decided that that was a point in my life where I needed to take personal responsibility and decide to end the relationship, although he still didn't think I was serious. Funny. So that's kind of, I've been at this for long enough. Let's see. So since 64 is when I started doing tarot, and you can figure out how many years that is. 56 years that I've been doing this officially, not counting being born weird and having all my other experiences since I was about 4. So you're going to have different phases in your path, in your development, where things are more interesting or more significant and have more of an impact on you at certain points on your path, and then at some point you may go into something else, and it doesn't mean that there was anything wrong with the thing that you were doing, if you know what I mean, if that makes sense. Guess we can't look at spells as if they're some sort of chart sheet easy way out. Thoughts on okay. So Kim says, let me look at Canary's thing. I guess we can't look at spells as if there's some sort of cheat sheet easy way out. No. They're an assist. They can help you with the invisible realms. They can help you with your energetic body. They can help you focus what you want to do. They can help you deal with certain things, but you still have to deal with the things too. So yeah, it's not like Harry Potter. Well, actually, he didn't have an easy time of it, or you know what I mean. It's not like a whoop and it's all gone. We still have a process we have to go through. So Kim says, I have had a lot of spirit activity, and my new friend that I met on Christmas Eve and I have left some honey where we saw it. Siofra, thought you might like to know. Yes, well, you can, if it's just honey, or did you put in, like, rice and milk with it? Usually they like it all together, but honey's a good one. I had the same experience as a child. My schoolmates never liked me, but I desperately wanted to be accepted. I even asked them frequently why nobody liked me, never got an answer. Maybe this is a common problem among sensitive people. Well, yeah, I think it might be. Like I said, we make people uncomfortable. The unknown makes people uncomfortable. They don't like it. Yep. Fallon says, me too. So Canary says, how do you know if you have successfully got rid of a cord? Well, for one thing, you won't be obsessing about it. And also, you have to make the barrier the boundary and then keep the boundary. If it's like a person, especially, if you're cutting a cord with a person, you have to say, okay, this is it, bam. Don't contact me, not on Facebook, don't call me on the phone, don't leave me messages, don't troll me, not going to call you back. If they do that, you have to, if you're, in order to make it work, you have to follow through with real life stuff and not let it. And sometimes it's a process. If it's like a substance, getting other kinds of help for that is usually a good idea. So the Heart's Wisdom says, hey, I felt this too. People either really like me or don't. They find me too sensitive, too nice, or they sort of become jealous. I just like being from the heart in the best way I can. Well, I've had people tell me I'm too sensitive, and my response to that is that they're not sensitive enough. And if you're too nice, well, my goodness, what a horrible thing. Yeah, people are silly. So Sarah says, you're a kind and wise soul. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Well, I'm glad that comes through because, it's like I haven't done this. I just started doing this last year, so this is still a little bit new to me. And I'm glad that it translates and that people can tell. April says, exactly, I seem to polarize people. They love me or they loathe me. Generally speaking, okay, now here's something. I've talked about it in one video, but that was a while back. And that is, the more clear you are, the more you've cleared out your own aura and your own energy field, the more uncomfortable people who aren't will become. Because the fact that you're clear agitates them on an energetic level. Because, a lot of people, they've got larvae and stuff attached to them, all their issues and thought forms and all this other stuff. And when you're a clear person, those things have a hard time staying where they are at, and in order to keep doing what they're doing with the person that they're attached to, they want to make that person leave your area so that they can keep on working. So that's just a little aside. Jaleesa says, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I am best drawn to tarot and have always been an intuitive reader, but I definitely get the whole conflict of interest when you tell people what to do. Reading for myself is kind of difficult because I feel I always receive the same messages. You might want to try a different deck. My husband can't get any information that's useful to him except with the Thoth deck. And the reading that he can do that gives him information takes him 2 hours to do, so he doesn't do it very often. But sometimes it's the deck. So you might want to try a different deck and see if you can get more information. I like to see what's coming when I do the tarot that way. Fallon says, hi Siofra, hi everyone. My question is about my fairy oracle deck. If I use it regularly, does that come with a price I should be aware of? Okay, I have the fairy oracle deck, and as far as I'm concerned, using the deck has no price. In fact, the whole idea that there's a price for interacting with the fae is something I keep trying to, I don't know, I can't think of the right word, but I think that is not true. I think that accepting gifts from the fae doesn't make you have a binding contract with them unless you sincerely believe that it does, and then you're not working with the actual fae, but your projection onto them. So a deck is just a deck, and I don't think that working with the deck is going to cause you any issues. It's a beautiful deck. I love the pictures and stuff on it. and I find them all quite interesting to look at. Devil Blue says, you mentioned a god of tarot. Could you please elaborate on that? I'm going to have to get my husband on that one because he's the one who knows more information about it. But there is an actual deity that's in charge of tarot, and so I'll see if I can get him to do a video about it. How's that? Because I don't remember. Whoops. Everybody's talking, and I'm losing track of that question. So let me see if I can back up here a little bit. Let's see. I also used 3 tarot decks and got the same finality upon an issue is the way it works, like the current energies being magnetized. Well, I think the idea is a good tarot reading is going to see where you're at and where you're at and your past, where it's pushing you, and so a likely outcome from that. That doesn't mean you can't change the outcome, however, because we're witches, pagans. We can actually be more in charge of our path and where we go. But it does give you an idea of where you're going right now and whether you want to be there or not, so you can be forewarned and decide not to do that. So Fallon says, it's so nice to see that I am not the only one like this. Yes. I polarize people. We all polarize people. It's just some crazy thing. I mean and not answer. Kim says, I did add milk. I did not know about the rice. I am new with the Fae. It was gone, so it must be good. Yeah. I think, I mean, they're going to appreciate it. Who knows what animal they sent to actually have it, but at least it's something that's innocuous and it's not going to harm anything that's out there. And it is a traditional gift to them. So Tia says, Jaleesa, that means you're not taking care of the issue. My oracle cards kept telling me to be more confident for literally months, to the point that I got the same reading with other people's cards. Isn't that annoying? Yeah. Hey, I need a new answer. I'm sorry, this is the only answer that you're getting. Until you hear this answer, we are stuck. So Jaleesa says, at Tia, I feel the same way. I don't think I have been able to figure it out. I've been getting the same messages for years. Oracle decks have helped me to get different messages, but it is still the same. Well, it could be just one of those things that, you know, it'll change when you start changing yourself. Who knows? Violet says, are the 3 tarot faces of an elemental triplicity connected to the 30 degrees of the tarot? I'm not the right person to answer that question. I don't know. Jaleesa says, topic, I think I need to do some shadow work. Yeah, probably. We all do. It's kind of one of these things. You're welcome, Devil Blues. However I said, whatever I said. I can't remember anymore because I keep on going forward. I'm so glad. And Violet says, how do you feel about herding mice with decon under the house? My main concern would be the neighborhood cats and birds that might eat the mice that would then die from the poison that's in it. So, yeah. I mean, you have to sometimes do that. We get rats in our attic. At least when they're in our attic, we don't worry too much because then, you know, they stay up there, which is kind of gross, but there they are. And we don't have any cats at the moment, so we don't have to worry about our cats catching something that starts stumbling around and can't run. You have to make your choices. I mean, life and death is part of this experience for every living thing. And, you know, boundaries. Got to have some boundaries. Yeah. Wow, I caught up. Awesome. This has been fun. I'm glad that we made it in here after having to take the door off to get into the building. Hubby lost his keys, and he had the only key to the garage, which is the door outside of the temple to get into the inner door to the temple to get out here. And we discovered that at like 20 minutes after 1, I think it was. So it was a big rush to kind of get everything going so I could be here. So that was good. So Devil Blue says, when is the start of a new year? The zodiac wheel starts with Aries. 1st of January is only a convention. Well, I think so. I mean, the witch's new year is October 31st slash November 1st, and it just depends. And of course, solstice, winter solstice, can be seen as the beginning of a new year because the sun is coming back, which is probably what Nisha was talking about, and I wasn't thinking along those lines. And I think different cultures, like China has its new year sometime in January usually, so they're on a completely different calendar than we are, and all of those things are just artificial. So at least the solstices are not artificial. I mean, they happen, whether people believe in them or not. One of the things I like about them. So Jaleesa says, any experiences with the Morrigan or Morgan Le Fay? I had my spirit guide try to contact me, and she introduced herself as a fairy queen, fairy witch goddess. Any idea what that may mean? There's probably more than one. You might want to look at some books and see what's there, but I haven't worked with the Morrigan personally. I was working with the water spirits, and Nimue came forward, and she is like the Lady of the Lake in Arthurian legend, apparently. So, there's no reason why you can't connect with an energy that's like that, because they're out there, and there's a fair number of people now that work with the Morrigan. So, yeah, it could be. And she certainly would qualify for that, but I think there's others. So, I can't think of them right now. And the She are a little bit different than the Morrigan. They're different kinds of things. I like Winter Solstice for the first one. You all. Hello, Liv. Can you talk about the Fae? That's sort of what we started doing here. But yes, I can talk about the Fae. What would you like to know, I guess, would be the question. Exactly. I mean, without them, we wouldn't have any life. They're sort of an integral part of our entire biosphere, just the part we don't generally see. Hey, once again, the regular nonsense. Woohoo! We got several videos on them now. The one everybody seems to see first is the one that Google or YouTube is promoting, which is kind of nice that I have one up there. Liv says, I'm a baby witch and wondering why you cannot interact with them as a new witch. I have absolutely no idea because I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think that it's... Okay, so I was watching a show the other day. I think it was Constantine. We were rewatching the series because, there's nothing on TV. And they were, one of the episodes, it was about a demon that wanted to have infants for some purpose or whatever, nefarious, of course. And of course, newborn before it's baptized, blah, blah, blah. And I thought about that, and I thought, you know what? This is exactly the same story that has gotten all of them. Like the stories promoted about the fairies stealing children and switching them for their own. The stories about witches wanting unbaptized children in order to make flying ointment and other spells. The stories about the Jewish people stealing children and killing them. It's almost like any group that the Christian church was trying to eradicate or distance themselves from, they gave them the same purpose and the same evil intent to promote that they were working with Satan. And so, they're heretics, they're Satanists, they're devil worshippers, or what have you. And the Fae were supernatural earth spirits, that were part of the land, and people interacted with them, the people who knew them, the people who were, I guess, safe to interact with them. Regular folk generally would leave that up to someone who knew more. But I think that all of those stories have that same foundation, and is to make people afraid of interacting with them. And I find it sad. I mean, this sort of started fairly recently, as far as I can tell, because like when I was first investigating this, Finhorn Gardens had started. I listened to the tapes, Conversations with Pan, by one of the guys from Finhorn, which are marvelous, and I highly recommend. They're somewhere. I found them on the internet, so you can find them and listen to them. And he had direct connections or contact with Pan, and Pan explained the whole thing, from his point of view. And there was like a dialogue that had begun between people and the Fae, or the things that we put into the category of the Fae. So, like I see people going crazy on the internet in pagan groups all over the place. It's like, oh no, the fairies left me something. Should I touch it? If I touch it, I'm going to be in trouble, and I'm going to bind myself to them, and I'm going to be in a contract for all of eternity with these creatures. And I see the Fae going, well, we spent all this time and energy finding the perfect gift for you guys, and then you're all like just ignoring them and leaving them and being baffled by it. I don't think the fairies ever mean any harm. Certainly there's a possibility that you could have a type of Fae that, interactions between a person could be not conducive to, well-being of the person, because like if you stepped in front of a mother bear between her and her cub, doesn't matter how much of a bear person you are, you're probably going to get chased down and potentially killed. So, they're wild. It's not like they're a tame group of beings, but I don't know. I just find the whole thing very confusing. Okay, looks like everybody's talking and I'm not seeing what's going on. Okay. If you're angry all the time, which chakra needs to be balanced? That would be what people think of, it's the navel chakra, but people put it up here higher than it is. But the thing to do for that is if you can bring that energy up into the heart center. The heart balances the chakras. The heart is at the center of everything. So it balances the physical chakras and it balances the spiritual chakras. And so anger that's not positive anger in that chakra is like, it makes things confusing. It's like putting a hot rock in a boiling water and creating steam. Like you can't really see what's going on. You just have this massive force and energy. Good anger comes from higher up, and it clarifies things. Anger tells you something is wrong. It's like a message from your body, from your unconscious. There's a situation, something's not right, something is wrong, and but you have to be able to bring that up into a place where it tells you that something it tells you what to do about it, and so forth. So being able to bring that up into heart chakra meditations and try to balance things is your best bet when it comes to that. Lovely Constantine. Who's Constantine? All right, I guess I missed that. I've been bugging poor Siofra about a favor here for a few days now. Yeah, well, everyone's going to have their own experiences with him. Is Krampus real? I hope not. I have no idea. I haven't met Krampus, and I'm not wanting to meet Krampus. The things I've heard about him, I don't know if I want to meet him or not. I don't know. He may be real and regional. Tia Marie says, at Live, I interacted with the Fae a lot when I was a kid, and I wasn't a witch. Yeah, you don't have to be a witch to interact with the Fae at all. Kim Medina says, I am Jewish. They said we stole babies? Yes, they did. The Christian church did. I mean, okay, the Inquisition started off, the Spanish Inquisition was against the Jewish people in the beginning as heretics because, they killed Jesus. That was the whole rationale kind of thing. None of this stuff makes any sense to me personally. just reporting the facts as far as I can tell what they are. Um, but it's just it's not sensible. It's irrational. It's like the whole world is sometimes consumed by these emotional, irrational fears where they just lash out at a group of people. And unfortunately, it still happens. Whether it's witches or healers or, um, you know, someone in a different political bent or whatever, or a different country. I mean, nationalism I consider as an issue and a problem because it separates people and it gives edges to conflict. And religion does the same kind of thing. It gives edges to conflicts. It says, this is my definition of what's good. And if you're not within this definition of what's good, you are by definition bad. And therefore, I want to either absorb or destroy you because I can't exist knowing that there's something besides me out there that isn't like me. Makes no sense to me, but I'm different. Never has made any sense to me, which is ironic being born in 1950. My father was quite the racist and misogynist and violent person, just all the things that no one should be. And I was raised at a time when a lot of people were like that and it was considered normal. So I just never fit. I don't think I still fit either. It's like I sometimes feel like society has not yet caught up to where it ought to be as far as interactions with people and getting rid of prejudices and these definitions of things that don't serve anybody. So maybe I'll come back in 500 years and see where we're at. See if things have gotten better. So Jaleesa says, any tips to get Faye to stop messing with your stuff? Well, set boundaries. That's about all you can do. They do like to hide stuff, but they don't mean any harm by it. My thoughts on gnomes. There are some of my favorite nature spirits. I mean, you can do a thing and have a chat with them and say, okay, here are the rules. You're allowed to do this in my house. And when you catch them doing something they're not, and I usually do this, like if I'm looking for something and I know where it's supposed to be, and it's suddenly not there, they're my first suspect. And I'll go like, okay, guys, I know you did it. You better put it back. I'm going to leave the room, and when I come back in, I want to find it where it's supposed to be. And most of the time that works. I'll leave the room, I'll come back in, and it'll be right where it's supposed to be. I don't know that, I mean, it's just sort of like little kids liking to move stuff around, or a cat finding something that's interesting and wants to go play with it. So I don't think there's any malicious intent when it comes to moving stuff around. They like shiny objects. If they're shiny and they can move them, then all bets are off. But setting boundaries, I set boundaries for my cats when I have them. So you can set house rules. It's your house, and if they want to, and you give them something to play with that's okay for them to play with, that can help. Like some people will take a bowl and put some pretty rocks or colored stones, glass or whatever in it, and just put it somewhere and say, here, these are yours. You can move them around, you can play with them, you can do whatever you want with them, or put them outside and say, I put these things outside for you to play with, so you can go outside and play with that stuff and leave my stuff alone because this is my stuff. So yeah, just have to do what you can, set some boundaries. So, hi Siofra Corridor 71 says, do you feel like everyone has a spirit guide? Well, I feel like everyone does have some kind of a spirit guide. They're sometimes different. Some people have ancestors, in their bloodline that come back to help assist them. And some people have guardian angels who just sort of hang around and try and help when they can, but aren't necessarily spirit guides. They don't really tell you what to do. When I meet them, when I'm doing like distance healings and stuff like that, and I find someone with a guardian angel and I ask, can I do this? They're like, It's a human thing. Only humans can decide. And I'm like, yay, thanks for the information. Not helpful. Um, but, higher spirits, some guardians or spirits can come and go. For example, I have a medicine man that I met when I was up in Saskatchewan in a power spot, the medicine wheel, an ancient medicine wheel, and he showed up in my bedroom a few months back and told me his name, and it's like he's still hanging around from time to time. So apparently I'm getting a tickle in my throat. So yeah, I think we do. Tori says this might be a little risque, but my partner and I are not as sexually connected as I wish we were. As a Scorpio, Mars, and Venus, I want to be aligned despite this balance in my solar plexus and sacral. Okay, I don't see a question though. Thank you. I love these cards and I look forward to working more with the Fae. What are good plants for attracting them? Well, they like a lot of different plants, but witchy magical plants. They like lavender and rosemary and sage and that kind of thing. They like flowers. I have a nice flower garden. And they like blooms and stuff like that. I don't know that there's others that are particular. Rue is one I wish I could get because it's a witch plant that's supposed to be very protective. They like acorns, so oak trees apparently they're fond of. And there's probably lots of other trees that they like. And of course, each tree has got its own tree spirit. So technically, they're sort of like a fae in themselves. Well, I felt the fae were bad. Excuse me. Until this week, when my daughter and I saw one the past few nights outside. Are you the one that's in Saskatchewan? And the fae came after the blizzard? Someone wrote me about that. Well, actually, yeah, we watched Constantine the movie, but I was talking about Constantine the series. It's a 13-episode series. They canceled the show. But we had downloaded it, so we can watch it periodically. Amar says, hi, Siofra. It's always good to see other people who have broken those cycles of hate. Yes. Let me get back down here now. According to one's karma, can one reincarnate here as many times as someone chooses and wants to? Well, I don't know that karma has anything to do with it necessarily. I think it's a desire to learn more and to be here. And I don't see any reason why not. I know I've been here a lot. I remember about 20 or so different lifetimes, but I know that those weren't the only ones. So I think it's a matter of your desire and wanting to interact on this plane. Tia says it's not you. Society's slow. Hopefully it'll catch up eventually. Yeah, that would be nice. Well, must look really bad. Myself and all the women in my family have gifts. We are Spanish Jews, and I have a fae outside. I think that's wonderful. Heart's wisdom. I've been really fortunate lately to have healing experiences from the fairies through my heart. I was wondering what your experience has been with your heart in connection to your mind in your practice. Well, the heart chakra, like I said earlier, is like the balancing chakra, and I consider it like, and dreams are the language from the heart. And my spirit guide told me to follow my heart, and so the heart has been very important in trying to understand what the heart is, what that centeredness means, and so I'm not sure exactly how to explain that, except that I think that the mind by itself is a poor leader. logic only works up to a certain point. Any logic taken to its logical conclusion destroys the world that it has created. And the heart is the thing that keeps things in balance, and allows you to make leaps of intuition that aren't possible through just logic. So, the thought of the Fae hiding things is just hilarious to me, but I agree we have a right to set healthy boundaries, yes. Well, if you don't, they're going to walk all over you, just like the ants, right? So Jaleesa says, yes, definitely boundaries are needed. I have a little area for them to play outside, but I guess they have made their way inside. Amar says, at Kim, if you feel comfortable sharing, what did the Fae being you saw look like? Kim says, where in Saskatchewan did you live, Siofra? I'm in Melville. I lived in Regina. And also in Capel at one point. And outside of Regina, Saskatchewan, there was a colony that it was colonized initially by some Russians that came over, and they bought this huge giant plot of land, and all of them put their houses in the one set of corners and stuff, and they farmed wheat and so forth, and that's where I lived. At Amar, we've been seeing it at night, so it's dark outside, but it was about 1 to 1.5 feet tall, kind of looks like a tiny person. And didn't you think it was call it a sprite, I think? Trying to remember. Tori says, I guess my question was how to stay balanced when you're in a relationship that might not be completely filling that physical part of your life at the time. Well, couples therapy. I mean, I don't know anything about your relationship, so doing meditation and stuff like that to stay balanced within yourself. Everyone's relationships are so different, and there's so many different styles and types of relationships out there. I really can't make a recommendation except to follow your path the best you can and develop yourself and become the best version of you that you are or can be, and then see what happens. Yeah, Story says, or if there could be something I can do to improve that part. Well, that would be the couples therapy and maybe some sex counseling or some books on it. Yeah, I don't know. I think counseling is probably the best option to find out if there's something that's blocking that energy between the two of you that needs to be dealt with. I've gone through different phases myself. Of course, now that I'm 70, I'm sort of in the full-on crone phase and not particularly interested in that aspect of things because of changes happening in my body. But yeah, so I'm thinking some real world counseling and talking to somebody who specializes in that would probably be your best bet to get information at least and figure out what you want to do with it. Decide for yourself what you want. Kim says, Adamar, a friend asked me to film or take a pic, but I feel that's disrespectful not asking the Fae for permission first. Well, I'm not even sure if they would show up on film. That would be a different thing altogether. Although Franz Barden had a method of taking pictures of elementals and and things like that. We haven't been able to reproduce it. He mentions it, but I'm not sure whether or not anyone knows exactly how he did it. I'd have to ask Ian because he knows more about all of his books than I do, although I've read a bunch of them and used some of the information. But that's a good question. I don't know if it would show up. And it might be good to ask, just in case. So, why not, right? See what it thinks. The one that got caught in my husband's magic lamp was kind of hysterical. I mean, we had all this stuff knocking over in his room. It was like falling over, almost hitting the lamp, trying to knock the lamp over, and all this other stuff. And Ian's like, what the heck is going on in my room? I don't understand it. It's like, there's all this stuff keeps falling around my lamp. And one day he blew the lamp out, was it? Or he was going to light the lamp, and all of a sudden a fire sprite just leaped out of the lamp, and it was little. It was only about, like, yay big. And, yeah, so... Hey, I call it an elemental and you were not happy. I'm sorry that was lack of knowledge. Oh, I wasn't unhappy. Just like I said, my brain is a literal. I have a literal brain. I hear words and I take their literal meaning, and so, I have a definite definition of what an elemental is, and a fae is not the same. So I brought along a picture. Thought I'd show you guys. Let's see if this will work or not. I'm waiting for it to show up so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. There is a picture of me when I was little. This is a picture I talked about briefly, about what I was like. Let's see if I can get it better. That's me in a bathtub with my grin on my face. And when you're trying to, like, get back to where you were when you're going through all this stuff, finding a picture of yourself before anybody did anything mean to you is helpful. I recommend it. It's a good thing. Heart's Wisdom says, I really appreciate you saying that. Also, how do you deal with negative thoughts? Sometimes I use mantras, but lately I'm constantly drawn back to heart-centered awareness and painting with the Fae. Well, I guess everyone's going to have their own way of dealing with negativity. The less you care about what other people think, the easier it is to deal with their negative thoughts and, blocking their energy and that kind of thing. It's none of my business what people think of me, right? That kind of thing. But what's more important is what I think of myself and my relationship with the universe. So the more you're on your path and the more you're walking it and connecting with all the life and energy and so forth that's around you, the easier it is to deal with people that aren't aware of what they're doing and don't understand the consequences of some of their negativity and stuff like that, and you can just block it out. That's what I do. Alan says, I know that the tree behind my place has a pretty humorous spirit. I can see it's amused when my son comes with me to feed the birds. Do these beings like children? Oh, yeah, no kidding. Because children are innocent, and they don't have all these preconceived stupid notions about the Fae and how bad they are. And they love kids. That's when I got the most connection when I was little. It's like they just really liked me a lot, and they care. Yeah, I still have. Well, I lost my little curly Q thing when that happened, but whatever. So, and let's see, how Devil says, how does one stop someone from projecting and intruding in my dreams in the astral? I told him to stop interfering, but seems persistent. I also have protective stones around. Well, you just have to keep on setting those boundaries and then kick them. I mean, if he's been warned and stuff like that, I actually set up like a trap. Somebody sends something negative at me now, it comes at me, I see it, and I'm just like, and just throw it straight back. Might want to stick up a mirror, and program the mirrors to send back any negative energy from any plane, whether it's astral or mental or, Akashic, although most people who are like that can't really do it from the Akasha plane. That takes a little bit more understanding of a lot of things in order to use that effectively. So, program yourself that when you see them in your dreams, that you just make them leave and get the heck away. And that's the end of that. Yes, I love that picture of me. Same hair clip. Well, that's actually my hair. That is actually a little curly top kind of thing. And the evil twins next door cut it off. That's when I lost that many, many years ago. So Amar says that Kim, I think, is kind of thing. It's a kind thing to do to ask for permission. Intent and transparency matters. I also feel like if they don't want to be caught, they won't. That's quite possible. Taylor says, I find myself being hostile when I am confronted by spirits. I want to work on that and not be so afraid. Would you have any ideas? well, that's one of the things you have to sort of work through. Um, Knowing that you're in control and they can't do anything to you helps, and being able to be empathic and find out how they're feeling. Your anger might be because they're intruding upon your space, and it could be a protective mechanism in order to keep you safe, because anger's got a lot of energy to it. And certainly some people can use anger to like make spirits leave them alone and that kind of thing. But if you want to interact with them, maybe you can find a neutral place, and say, like, ghosts, human ghosts can't come into my bedroom in the middle of the night and wake me up and say, hey, I'd like to talk, I need some help. I've established boundaries around that, around my house. And they know it, and they can tell. Again, boundaries with everything is important. You have to decide what's okay and what's not okay for you. So if you want to be able to communicate with them without that, then I would set up a time and a place in which to do it and invite them and say, okay, I'm here. I want to interact with you. Don't scare me. Don't do anything mean, or I'm going to like not do this again, and then open up a dialogue and see what happens. The only thing I can think of. The more experience you get, the less frightful things are. Boundaries is a big thing. You have to have your own space. Thank you so much. Your wisdom and knowledge is always appreciated. Thank you, Devil. At Taylor, if they are very attracted to fear, it feeds them energy. Try to be firm but not confrontational. Well, yeah, certainly fear is one of the things that they feed off of. If they're negative spirits, I mean, it could be that they're not, but yeah. Fear and anxiety can change a normal haunting into something completely different. So it looks like we're coming up on an hour and a half. We certainly have had lots of great conversations here. I never know what we're going to talk about, but sometimes I know, but today I didn't know. But anyway, this has been great, and I guess I better stop before I start to get more tickles in my throat and start coughing again. Lamar says sometimes the spirit may be hostile because they might be afraid of you, so they appear scary as a means of protection. Or they're angry because somebody did something mean to them, or something, yeah. I mean, I've met some definitely hostile spirits over the years. Like, there was one woman ghost who hated men, and every man that came into the house could feel it because she was murdered in the house by a man, and she couldn't distinguish between the guy that killed her and any other guy, so she just went after every guy. So there can be those kinds of things too. You're welcome. My daughters and I are dealing with a lot of different spirits. Thank you for everything. You're welcome. I really enjoy these conversations. They're lots of fun. Keep my brain active. Thank you so much for taking the time to give us your wisdom. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yay, thank you. All right, guys. Have yourself a lovely Sunday. We're glad that the sun is out here. We have at least a brief break from the rain. It'll be coming back later. And if you have any questions, send them to me, to my email, and we'll figure out what we're going to do next. And what we're, any subjects in particular. Sounds like a few subjects came up today. I'll have to think about it. So, thank you guys. Bye.